Welcome to the Arithmetic Zone and welcome back to Basic JavaScript. Now, I know I said in part 5 that was going to be the last part of that series, but I realized that if I were to teach the next lesson of Introduction to Web Design without going over this concept, you guys might be confused. So hence, I'm making a part 6 of Basic JavaScript, and today we're going to go over objects. So we're going to actually go back to our Basic.js folder. I'm going to make a new file in there. We'll call it objects.js. So what are objects anyway? Objects are a special kind of data type in JavaScript that allow us to hold multiple values at once. They're kind of like lists, but you can hold many different properties. Like they're just much more flexible than arrays. So to give you an example, you declare an object in a similar way you declare a variable. So let's say let Mike, I'm just throwing a random name out there. Now after that, what you do is you put an equal sign and then brackets and then press enter. And then here, this is where you're going to write your different properties. So, let's say one of them is name. Alright, now let's say his whole name, put it in strings, so let's have quotes. Let's say his whole name is Mike Smith. Kind of typical. Now that's one property, and if you want to reference this property, what you would do is console.log and then say Mike. I should probably lowercase it for convenience. So Mike, and then use dot notation, dot, and then the property name. So save, and we're gonna run this. So let's press F5, select node.js. And it prints Mike Smith, so we know it works. And again, the cool thing about objects is that you can hold multiple different properties at once. So if you want to separate these properties, you put a comma. Do not forget the comma. And then let's write another property. Let's say age 18. Alright, you don't have to put the comma if there's no property after it. So now we can reference that age. So Mike.age. And again, if we were to run our code with F5, it prints Mike Smith and then 18. Pretty cool, right? And I can add many more. Things. Like let's say his favorite food is steak. Oh, I forgot the comma. Don't forget the comma after the property when adding more. I can say maybe favorite color is red. And now I can print this all out with console.log. So Mike.favorite food, comma, Mike.favorite color, using the comma so I can have them both on the same line and with a space. And again, don't forget the object name, Mike, and then the dot. That's a common mistake. But anyway, let's run it. And we see steak and then space red, which we got from our properties over here. So it seems pretty simple. You can do this with strings. You can do this with numbers, like right here. And you can even do it with booleans, the true or false statement. You can also do it with arrays. So let's put a comma and say favorite sports. And then put a colon. And then now, when we want to specify the array, we put the hard brackets. And let's say volleyball. And then maybe soccer. I'll just stick with 2. Now, how do we reference these individual elements? Well, console.log, Mike.favorite sports, and then now we put in the index number. So let's say we want to reference soccer. That's an index number of 1. So we put in brackets 1. Save, and then run the code. And we have soccer at the very end, so we know that it works. You can even put in other objects inside of objects. So how would that look? Maybe instead of making a new one, I'm going to convert this name into an object. So after the colon, I'm going to write in the squiggly brackets again. And then I'm going to move you up here. And we're going to separate this. So first name, this is a subproperty. First name Mike. And then comma, last name, colon, Smith. So now name is a property of Mike, but name is also an object, and that object has the properties of first name and last name. So let's see what happens when we run the code without specifying these two properties while we only specify name. So it's still going to work, but when we print out an object, in this case name, it gives us what those properties and those values are. So first name Mike, last name Smith. And of course, if we want to reference these specific properties after name, you put in another dot notation and then the sub property first name. Make sure it's this case is correct. So run the code, and now we only print out Mike. If we want to print out the last name, we specify as such, last name, and then run the code. Smith shows up. You can even have property names in strings, so with the quotes. How would you do that? Well, let's have a property called my height. I'm going to write it in quotations and then colon, and then we're going to write in the height in a string. So let's say 5 foot 10 inches. Pretty short in today's world. But anyway, keep in mind that I am using double quotes, which have priority when the compiler is trying to recognize which one's, the string. If you use single quotes only, it's going to think that the single quotes are part of the string and not the double quotes. So that's why it's a good habit to always use double quotes so that you can use single quotes inside of your strings. So anyway, we set up this my height property. How on earth are we going to reference this? Well, instead of using dot notation, we're going to use bracket notation. So we're going to have a bracket, and then inside the bracket we're going to write in the property name in string. So my height. Save, and let's run the code. And it prints out 5 foot 10 inches. So that's pretty cool, because what this means is that we can have property names that don't exactly fit the variable rules. Usually you can't have a space in your variable. Your program gets confused when that happens, and it's going to throw in an error. With this, you can have spaces, you can have numbers as the first character of the string or the property. So there's more flexibility when using these strings as property names. And you can also reference other properties with bracket notation, even if they're not written as a string. So let's say we want to print out favorite food. Well, put in quotes, favorite food. Save, run the code, and at the very end, it's going to print out steak. So those are the merits of bracket notation. You can even include functions within your objects. So how to do that? You write in a comma, and then we're going to say, the property name, let's say introduce. That's going to be our function name. Then put the colon. Now we have to specify that this property is a function. So we write function, then parentheses, then the squiggly brackets. And inside we're going to have our method. So we're going to use console.log, at the end of this code. On the bottom. So we're going to use a return statement so we can return a string. Now as an introducing statement, let's have it say return hi, my name is space plus, and we're going to use this dot, which you need in this case. This is a way to refer to the current object, in this case Mike, and you're going to have to use it in this case or else it's going to throw an error. So this dot, then the property name, so name, and we specifically want the first name. Now we're going to put another plus for concatenation, space, or quotes, then the period. Nice to meet you. Alright, now we're going to print out this phrase using Mike.introduce, and this is a function, so you're going to need those parentheses where you can include parameters if you did so in the method header. In this case, I didn't. But anyway, when we call this function, it's going to return this statement. Hi, my name is, so the object's first name, Mike. Nice to meet you. See it in action, and it works as intended. On a final note, you can actually change all the values within these properties. After all, we're using a let statement. If we were to use const and we try to, edit the contents, then it wouldn't work. But with let, we can. So how would we do that? Well, again, we reference the object name, Mike, and then the property that we want to change. Let's say you want to change the favorite food. Right now it's set to steak, but let's say we want to change it to pizza. So we're going to save that. And if we run, instead of printing steak, it's going to print pizza here and here. So that's the basic way of editing it. You know, if it's just a single property. If we want to edit, you know, the second item of favorite sports, Mike.favorite sports, colon, or not colon, brackets, and then 1, the index number, equals, say, basketball, save, and run the code. No longer prints soccer, it now prints basketball. And you can also, you know, add in items or remove items into this array. So Mike.favorite sports .push to append a new element. So parentheses, let's say we're gonna re-add soccer after changing it to after changing this one to basketball. So it's gonna say volleyball, basketball, then soccer. And to see that all in action, instead of printing only index 1 of favorite sports, let's print out the whole thing. So now it prints out the whole list: volleyball, basketball, soccer, as I said earlier. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Definitely a lot shorter than most of my web design videos, but this is an important concept in JavaScript that I should have covered earlier. But we're gonna be using objects in the next part of Intro to Web Design, and we're gonna be seeing the true power that comes when we format all of our data like this. See you guys then.